I'll go through my intros. All right, starting off, just want to say hello, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight. An introduction to myself. My name is Brian Ollis. I'm out of Arizona, go to church out there. We wanted to do this discussion for Zoom to identify and have a talk. Every couple of months, we've had this talk about identifying scammers and people who have dealt with scammers or experienced the heartache that can be that and the financial burden that can come from that, or the identity theft and all of the mess that comes out of that. So our topic tonight is about identifying scammers, what to do about them. And in this progress, I encourage people to chime in if you've got a particular experience based on one of the topic portions that we're going through to share with us. But I want to preface with I respect your privacy. If it's too personal, you don't have to share. Or if you don't want anybody to get to too much details, you can kind of summarize that to your leisure. But I do have a couple of experiences myself, and because of my position in leadership, I've witnessed quite a few people get scammed from low end to high end, well over $10,000 on one particular instance I'll use as a reference tonight. So all right. So that being said, again, general rules, please stay on mute until you intend to talk. But I do want you guys to jump in whenever you guys are ready. Use the chat moderator. The moderators will watch the chat. I won't always be able to read the chat while we're having this talk because I've got a list on my side here that I'll be looking at as well. Please respect privacy. If there is anything talked about here tonight, we want to respect the fact that a lot of people have gone through this stuff and they don't really necessarily think everybody should know it, but they do want to give as a personal experience so we can all learn from. So definitely love your neighbor as you love yourself when it comes to this kind of stuff. And let's keep anything we hear in here to this particular thing. And we are recording it, so we will be using this later as a reference for those who want to look back on it as well. So starting off, the big question, who's getting scammed? And a lot of people think it's a one-way thing. These scammers, it's guys and girls. It's not just one way. Also, it's not just one particular group doing the scamming. There are females and males as scammers out in cyberspace or wherever they're getting you from. So it's not just a bunch of guys. I've personally encountered females that are doing this, and they're very smart about it. A lot of them work in conjunction with each other, so they'll use each other to validate or verify who they are to keep that reputation going that they're trying to project on you. So what you'll typically get is a guy saying, hey, yeah, I'm so-and-so, and here's my sister, hear it from her. And it kind of breaks down that barrier for them for trust, but for you, it actually drops your guard, sometimes not in the best way. So scamming goes to both ends for guys and girls, so it's not just one-sided on the receiving and the sending. So who are the ones doing the scamming outside of male and female? Scamming is both local here in the United States and abroad. And the majority of them come from Africa, but there are European, there are Asian, there are also Australian and Indonesian scammers that have absolutely been on record. So it's not just isolated to one group. It's not just that, but there is a particular group in Africa that it's a part of their culture, and they feel no morality against it. And in their morality, they feel like if you've been taken advantage of, you've deserved it to a point. So they justify it in their own way. So they have no problem continuing this on and taking advantage of as many people in a 24-hour period as they can. So with that, there's a lot of different directions. Does anybody have any questions about what I'm talking about so far? If anybody wants to chime in before we move on to the next little piece here.
I just wonder, sorry. I just wonder if, when you get the things and you're looking at someone's profile and they'll have like this is like, copy this link or something like that. Like, I don't do that because I feel like that's not safe. But then there's also been like stuff that went around that's the only way that it is safe. So it's confusing.
Sure. Right. And so that's the thing, right? We'll talk about that. I'm glad you brought that up. We'll actually identify a couple things when it comes to grabbing links and opening up things that are outside of the actual thing that they originally messaged you on or communicated with. So that's actually perfect transition.
Share a story when you get through.
Okay. If you want to share right now, I ask that you keep it brief because we are on a time slot.
Okay. Well, I had got just in January, I got an email from PayPal because I'm connected with PayPal making payments.
Mhm.
And I called and it was a scam. And at the time, I didn't know they talked so fast. Well, they took me for all the savings I had, which was $1,500.
Yeah.
And they lost it. They couldn't do nothing. District attorney can't do anything. Because what they had, be careful with what they had. Now they're doing is they having you go and Walmart or somewhere like that and buy a gift card and go scratch off and give them the number on the back of the card. That way they
Right.
cannot be caught.
That's right. That's
so
them using the loophole.
My bank couldn't do nothing because I actually purchased the gift cards.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's a good example.
And that was hard. I mean, I told him, and I talked to him, and I said, "You scammed me," and you're right. He said, "Yes, I did," and they felt nothing. They thought, So, but just be careful because that's one thing to do now is have you buy a gift card.
That's right. So, and that's one of their ways. There's a couple of methods when it comes to the financial aspect of it. If it's going directly through your bank, there are certain FDIC rules that they can do if they can prove it, if they can do IP addresses and backgrounds and see where the money went to. But if you actively purchase a gift card, there's no insurance policy that I'm aware of that they will redeem you. So you are out of luck.
The law couldn't even do nothing. I even talked to the district attorney, nothing.
Nope. Absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's a big one. So we'll go into that. So a couple of methods of scamming, how they reach you. We'll jump over here to that. So one of the ways they do it through email, through a random cell phone text, or an instant message. They do it through spam calls. I'm sure we've all heard about our car's extended warranty and maybe some other silly scams that are going on. Like I know one of them said my social security number was suspended. I thought that was a pretty interesting approach. They're doing it through all of the social media groups. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, those were on Twitter. If you have any type of side messenger like Line or WhatsApp or Microsoft Meet or any of those, I know Kip is another one, or the Kick app, they will absolutely reach out at random. And here's the thing about that, because it's at random, you didn't have to do anything or be associated with anything or affiliated with anything. They send out a mass message, and those who reply are the ones they're targeting. So typically, if you don't reply, they leave you alone. They don't waste their time. But the moment you start engaging with them, you're giving them nibble, just like a fish biting a hook. So they will continue to do that. And what they're really doing with each one of these attempts, I think we've all seen, and if you haven't seen, one of the big email scams is, some person of great authority, some prince was trying to contact you to give you money, and you just have to give them your credentials so they can wire you the money. Too good to be true, right? That's a real common one. And then the random spam calls, same thing. What they're typically asking is for your information, your bank account, to either help you or correct something that they discovered to be wrong. If you do that, don't take the call. Call that company back, but not using the number that they called you from, and say, hey, here's what I got. Is this official? Because what you don't want to do is give them your login information. The tech support on the other end does not need your login information if they're calling from a particular group like PayPal or anything like that. And as sincere as we all are, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing and make sure all of our stuff is in order. So we give into it. We fall victim to it. So it pays to be a little keen on the way that they're doing this. On the other end of it, Facebook or Instagram or any other messenger that you have, what you'll typically see is they'll ask you to jump over to WhatsApp. Has anybody ever experienced that one?
Oh, yes, quite a bit.
Right. So
yes,
the thing
all the time.
Yeah. So there's a reason why they want you on there. There's a background to that app that they can get more information you realize that you have publicly from that app. And because of that, it allows them to do recording. It allows them to do IP manipulation. It allows them to transfer files and search for files if they know how to do it. So by all standards, do not jump into WhatsApp for any reason unless you actually know that person. Chances are, if they were communicating on whatever social media to begin with, stick with that if it's a legitimate conversation. But there's a big tell, right? So if they're jumping into WhatsApp, that's their catch. Don't give in under any reason. Don't give in, or whether it's Line or WhatsApp or in Kick or anything. Don't do it. And with all of those, ultimately it's about money. They want money. They want some form of manipulation to find a way to tug at your heartstring or play on your innocence or legitimately blackmail you. And I'll give an example of some of that stuff. You mentioned just now, and thank you for sharing that, through PayPal, using the cards, the Apple cards or the Amazon cards or the gift cards. Anytime somebody's asking to transfer gift card information across the pond there or anywhere, see that as a big red flag if you're already that far into it. But ultimately, unless you truly know the person, I cannot recommend you give out any kind of money. There are things abroad that they can actually get money from, like UNICEF or other charity organizations. Don't become their charity, because if you do give $1, let's say you just did it. Let's say what's the deal? The moment you do that, chances are they're not in a room by themselves. They will share with 50 other people real quick that you are vulnerable, and they'll do it again and again and again and again from every different angle. So they'll try every approach to get you. And I've seen that happen even to myself. So do not get in the habit of picking on these guys or trying to fish for them, because all you're doing is raising awareness for them to try and approach you again and again and again. I know a lot of us have done that in the past. You just have to be very cautious. And I can tell you, if you're a part of any social media group that deals with scammers, they'll tell you right away, don't even talk to them, don't entertain them, because they are sharing that information. And the other one that they do is the relationship scam. So yeah, it's about money, but ultimately they will invest time in you for months before they even pull this card. And they will eventually say something to the effect of, I'm either locked out of my bank account, I'm stuck overseas, or I'm starving and something happened and my card doesn't work or something like that. If you're involved with somebody for 2-3 months and you start getting personal, you share day to day, you start trusting them. Maybe you didn't see the signs before. People are prone to want to help. The moment you do that, that's their money. You're never seeing it again. And depending on the method you give it to them, they can take more whether you like it or not. To include some people going as far as the scammer will say, hey, let's say it's a lady and you're just conversing and you're wanting to pay your bills, and they volunteer to pay a utility bill. They might actually do it. They'll spend $100 and invest in you and pay your bill or whatever it might be. And they're involving trust in that relationship because it is a romance scam. And then somewhere down the line, they say, well, you can trust me. I've helped you with bills before. I'm out $500 over here. Will you help me out? And you give it to them. That establishes some things, some precedents in that relationship that will lead to thousands coming out of your account later on. And then the other one, the blackmail method, has to do with, as you guys can see me on the screen here, some programs can record me. And let's see, Skype is one of the big ones they can do this on, among others. When they record you, they can mute your voice and have you say whatever they want, or they can have you just muted in general and make you appear to be watching something inappropriate. And in the course of your connection with them, they could have gotten all of your friends list. They could have gotten all of your email lists associated. They could have gotten a background search on you. It's not difficult to do a background soft search on anybody these days. You pay $20 and you can find anything. And they will absolutely threaten you with taking something that didn't happen, show you their modification to it, and threaten to email your boss, your church, your family, your friends, put it public on social media, and attach your name and information as a part of it unless you pay them. That is a difficult one to get away from, because once they've got your video, what you have to do right away is disconnect with them and contact authorities when it comes to that. Unfortunately, there's very little they can do, but there are some things that authorities can do to scrub certain things on the internet to help as best they can, a little bit of the aftermath, if it goes that route. Has anybody ever experienced that one?
Yes, I am.
Absolutely. So I have personally as well. It was 2016, and I thought somebody was one of my personal friends. They actually dubbed over their Facebook account. So I'm sure some people have seen this. I think most of us have seen this. Maybe your friend re-adds you and their Facebook's kind of blank and they only have like 10 friends. In the process of this, they're pretending to be the friend that you think you have. And in that process, that's when they take advantage of you. On top of that, since you did add them, a lot of us have open friends lists. They're connecting to every single one of your friends going down the list, and they're going to do it to them. And they're just going to keep stacking up like a pyramid, every one of those people they can get known associates for. And if they can't even do that, the other big thing that they do is they'll go to your Facebook page, since we all typically can at least have a picture, they'll look at who liked it and then start targeting them. So it's really tough to get away from that stuff because the nature of social media and the way it affiliates and crosses over to people who like or comment on your page publicly or even privately. And unfortunately, that's it. There's no privacy on the depth of things. If a scammer really wants to get into your personal information or your page to either copy it or go after the people that you have who've liked or commented. All right, before we go into the next piece here, does anybody have any comments or anything to add with that one? All right. All right. So the next thing here, what do we do? What do we look for? Some of the key tells whenever you finally start getting these messages or emails or even phone calls. Obviously, there's a language barrier on the phone call if it's a random caller. I think those are a little easier to catch right away. But when it comes to getting a message on your social media, let's say it's Facebook. If you're on Facebook, if you're using that platform, what you'll typically see is somebody who's messaging you, be a guy or girl, and you'll typically get a too good to be true message. Somebody relatively attractive that you have no known affiliate or association with that just messages out of the blue and starts getting real personal. What they'll do is they'll want to know about your age, your location, your background, your job, your family right off the bat. It's kind of like asking security questions like, what was the name of your first dog? You know, that kind of stuff. What street did you grow up on? What was the name of your high school? That kind of stuff. They are absolutely looking for your personal information because they're typically trying to get into any accounts that they can find on you if they did start to find anything. So what you'll find is the language is an issue. You'll see either grammatical errors, you'll see a lot of shorthand, or you'll start seeing subject, object, verb transition. And I can tell you that those from West Africa or certain parts of Africa, where we in our culture have grammar Nazi kind of mentality, like, oh, we want to be perfect. They don't. And a lot of their stuff is so fluid that they don't care. That it doesn't occur to them psychologically that they're way off kilter. So they don't realize that they're doing it. Don't let them know that they're doing it. Don't give them an edge or to try and improve their own grammar. Let them keep falling on their own sword. But identify that stuff. What you'll find is a lot of flirtatious conversation or a lot of misspelled things coming right off the bat. Very bombarding right off the bat. Has anybody experienced those?
Oh yeah, definitely on Facebook.
Yeah, when they ask, well, why aren't you answering me? I say, because I'm not dumb.
They're persistent. They're absolutely persistent. You will get that a lot. So my biggest tell if somebody's doing that, first, if I don't know them at all, I'm very cautious. I think in my position, being admin on some of the groups, I do get random, actual, legitimate people who want to contact and communicate with me, guys and girls. So the conversation direction matters, but if it just starts going into, hey, I just wanted to make a new friend, and then they ask you right off the bat, are you single? Are you married? There it is. There's one of your first indicators, right? And again, the too good to be true. I think for guys, a lot of these female imposters will show pictures of celebrities or lesser known celebrities or actual supermodels and things like that. They go that far into it, and some of it's funny that they would go that route, but there's a ton of men who will just go, oh, wow, I'm getting attention from this attractive person. And I think my position from a faith standpoint is I'm not looking for a Jezebel who's just going to come after me. Stand your ground, stand your guard when it comes to that stuff, and don't get so swooned or wooed, if you will, that you lose that that site of what could be going on. Take everything with caution if it's too good to be true. And it happens to girls also, or ladies also. You'll get a lot of guys that are military overseas. They'll have the uniforms and all the goodies on, and you'll get a message from a guy saying, hey, I liked your picture, just wanted to get to know you. The funny ones get into, it'll be some 2-star general. And I can tell you right now, on the etiquette of things, no general is randomly adding people that they don't know for social media purposes or for relationship purposes. That's absolutely beyond their conduct. That is absolutely not who they are. And some of them will be reprimanded for that. So if it's somebody from overseas, military, whatnot, that chances are that is absolutely your first big flag. Has anybody ever experienced on that end?
Yes. And I was asking them, how did you know me? They couldn't answer me. I'm like, where did you see me from? No. So what? They couldn't answer anything. I'm like, no.
That's right. That's right. And so that's another one that's too good to be true. I know my own aunt, my uncle passed away, and she immediately started getting that. So believe it or not, some of these target obituaries, public obituaries, to look for widowed people, and they will go that route. If they could find you on there, or you have some public thing that said, yeah, my spouse passed away, August, whatever day, they will start targeting you. So what we put on social media on a public aspect, it is what they aim for. Unfortunately, that's one of their methods. And so my aunt reached out to me and said, hey, this guy's in the military. Does this look right? And I looked at it, and it's such a cookie cutter, no way could be kind of guy, giving out way too much information, and also not enough correct information. For those of us who are in the military, we know what to look for. We know that there are certain habits and certain things that they can and can't do, or can and can't say, or should be doing, to make it too good to be true. So if you have a family member who's going through that, by all means, jump in and share with them, for those of us who have served overseas or have that experience in general. Anybody else have any experience with that one?
I don't have any experience, but if you have a family member where something like that is going on, what can we say to make them say, oh, maybe you're right?
Okay, so that actually jumps into a couple of things about protecting yourself, and we can jump right into that. So it goes into this. If you can get a picture of their picture, their initial photo, like on their page or whatever they're communicating with, let's say it's Facebook, you can actually screenshot that, and you can go to the website TinEye, TINEYE, or you could just do a Google image search that allows you to upload a photo. And what it'll do is it'll do full analytics of the face and show every picture on the internet of that face. And what typically comes up with those scans through TinEye or through Google image search, it's a reverse search, will show scam after scam after scam associated with that face. And the moment you can show your family member that, then it finally dawns on them, oh man, they're taking advantage of me.
Can you repeat that website?
Yeah, TinEye. So yeah, TinEye, TINEYE. If you go to Google right now, just type TinEye reverse image search. It'll be your first little pop-up. And then what you do, if you can get the image, you just upload it from there, and it'll just sling it down. And it'll show every instance on the web that was directly connected to. Now, sometimes they get pretty creative and they adjust the image, but if you do a general Google image search, you can upload it directly to Google. If you're running a smartphone, you have to go to the desktop mode of Google. It doesn't allow you to do it on the web remote version. So make sure you click on that. I know Safari has a couple of different options with that as well. But a Google reverse image search or TinEye reverse image search, and we'll solve that. I've done it just recently, and it was scam after scam after scam associated with it. And the other thing you could do, let's say it wasn't through social media and it was their phone number and it was a text message scam. And again, if you get a text message out of the blue from somebody you didn't know, chances are it's too good to be true. Yep, that's it, TINEYE.com. You can actually reverse search their phone number by doing that, and then typing also including scam or relationship scam in there, and you'll see the times that those phone numbers have been reported. Also, if they include the WhatsApp and they say, hey, here's my WhatsApp number, immediately don't communicate with them. Take that as your first flag to not even jump on the WhatsApp with them, but report that under scam search. There's you can type in that phone number and then type in scam again, And there's sites that request that for the WhatsApp that will flag on their end, and they'll shut them down if they can get the phone number fast enough.
Well, the number I gave to the law, he couldn't do nothing because they had it looked up to a computer, so they had no way of contacting that number.
Yeah, and so the thing is, yeah, in the case of law enforcement making a difference, they can't necessarily make a difference, but some of the websites will go through WhatsApp to report it as a scam number, and they'll just cancel it. And so all it does is help WhatsApp defend against some of this.
Number, I'm gonna do it.
Right, absolutely. If you could do it, just put it in Google and under scam, and you'll start seeing that, or you'll find some similar people who are going through that directly related. And what you'll find is they'll change the first name or the last name as they're going through their scams. Some of them are getting real creative, and they're even making LinkedIn accounts to kind of bolster their background and their appearance. But what you'll find is they're kind of empty, but they will have something on there to connect to make it seem a little more legit. So they're getting creative. It's getting a little more tough to identify it. So if you think you're getting scammed, communicate with your friends, communicate with anybody you can as far as that goes. I've had many people reach out to me and say, hey, does this look right? And we've even had people in our church forums, like in our groups here, while I was an admin on SAM and with SAF, where it was obvious there was a person who went to apply for the group. Our job is to try and vet them as best as we can, and it wound up being a blatant scammer. And so we try to keep them from getting into the flock and picking on you guys.
Can I say something to that? The text message
Please.
part?
Yeah, please do.
I don't know if you guys have been, but more recently within the last 2 weeks, I've been getting 2 types of text messages. One is like a mass text message where they're sending it to multiple people.
It'll be 19
like
people on there.
Group message, and it will say like, they will say like, oh, like your thing has been paid for this month, and we're going to give you a complimentary month. Click here to claim your complimentary free month, and it'll say like, oh, you paid this month, and I'm like, I didn't click on anything, but
Right.
It's like that's what they're using, and nobody ever messages back in the group message, or I guess you're not maybe allowed to, because nobody ever says anything to it. I just delete it, and then I don't know if it's like a California thing or it's an all over the world thing in California or the US. I've been getting messages from like bot girls, and they'll say like, oh, like you left, like I can't wait to visit you again. And I'm like, I didn't visit you. I don't know who you are. And they're like, oh, like you just saw me. And they'll say like a guy's name. And I'm like, first of all, I'm a girl. I don't like girls. So you have the wrong number, or he gave you the wrong number. And then they'll send provocative photos. And it's like, what in the world is going on? So I don't even know how it's starting or why that's continuing to happen. But
so I can tell you how that happens. I can tell you how your number gets thrown in there. So with each phone number, you have 0001 through 9,999, and they will automatically put in every one of those 9,999 in a system that it just mass messages everybody, which is why you'll see it as a group of 19 or just individuals within usually your phone number range. So it seems like a local number sometimes, or a far number, but it is absolutely sent to every number. It's not just you. It is a computer program that they're using to mass message everybody. Thank you for sharing those. That's actually a pretty good point. So if you do get a message like that, don't click on it, for one. If you click on something like that, it can give you access. They can get access to your cookies. They can get access to your IP address. And for those who are computer savvy, I can say right now, I can get in anybody's IP address within about 5 minutes if I really wanted to, even on a call like this. So what we don't want to do is give them any kind of ammunition to research your IP address or anything you've been doing on the web to start tracking things, especially when it comes to a lot of people these days use their banking, their credit card information, their utility information online through those IP addresses. So don't give people who are trying to do identity theft or bank piracy that option. And one of the biggest weaknesses is companies like eBay. I've personally gone through and got an eBay purchase, but I did get hustled, not from anybody that talked to me, but from people that used my cookie, and they went back and they were able to continue to order things and basically pretend they were me and order over and over and over. And what they'll do is they'll nickel and dime it. It'll be for like 85 cents, $2, $3.95, nothing that flags your account that's like $500. But they can do that over and over and over again until they drain your entire bank account. I've dealt with that personally. So now you're stuck having to do an FDIC or a bank recharge, which will reimburse you, but it takes time. But the damage is done if they've cleared out your account. Sometimes you can be in a position where you could bounce a check or whatever. So be very careful if you get a message and you click on it that brings you out of the chat or out of the text message. Thank you for sharing that. Has anybody else experienced that one? All right, so the big part of this next section, what we're already talking about here, recognizing it, right? Recognizing the language, recognizing that it's a relationship scam. If it's too good to be true, chances are 99.9% it is. If you're a guy, I'm sorry, no supermodel gorgeous girl is just randomly messaging you at at random. And the same thing with the ladies. It just doesn't work that way. I think for those of us who are on forums that are on social groups and singles groups,
join the meeting.
For those of us who are on the singles groups and social groups like that, absolutely, people are going to reach out to each other. We want that, but make sure they're within your group. Make sure they're within your, your team. And if it's too personal, or if it's one of those things, share with the admin, or share if things have gotten inappropriate, or if the flag has come up, if anybody in our groups have said, hey, go to WhatsApp first, please let the admin know so we can deal with that accordingly, usually expediently, and get them removed from and blocked, because that's not okay. Again, what to do to protect yourself for that. Again, recognize, talk to people, ask the questions. Does this look right? Does this seem right? Reach out, but don't get so caught up that, man, this has got to be right. It seems so good. I'll be fine. Chances are you won't. They'll take everything you can that they can get from you.
Right. Does it seem like would they be having like Christian thing? I've been getting messaged by a lot of people on You Go, and they don't have very many pictures and stuff, so I won't respond and stuff, but like it is like they have like God stuff on their thing. Yeah. So I'm like, is that legit, or is it somebody like I have all my stuff locked down? Are they just, have their stuff protected? I don't know. Sure.
They will pose as Christians. That's one route for them. One of the first things I do is I ask them their affiliation, right? I've had that. In that context, you find out that maybe they immediately say that they're some other faith. I personally don't intermix when it comes to that stuff. But be cautious, even if their page shows a lot of.
I suggest that you Google a person to see. That's a way to see, if it's a real person or not.
Yes.
I'll tell you some information about that person.
Absolutely. In my case, if you Googled me, you'd find marathon times and 5K times, things like that would show up. Newspaper articles about me would show up. So, we all have a little bit of a digital footprint to some degree. If it's someone legit, chances are they might have something out there to where you can pretty much ask them, or you can just ask them outright, hey, how'd you find out about me? How do you know me? What made you add me? And then you start to see that language barrier stumble where they're speaking a little bit of a mess. But it's not all the same. I can tell you right now, if it's someone from Ghana or Kenya, their English can be very well. If it's someone from Nigeria, those who are weak in English, they get better. And so if you're familiar with their languages or the little tips that they have, you can kind of identify it. If it's from Ivory Coast, keep in mind their primary language isn't English, it's French, outside of the tribal languages. So you'll start to see a little bit of one way or another in their subject, object, verb alignment. It's just not the same as how we do things. Anything else on that? All right, so what do you do if you realize it's a scammer? Disconnect with them. Don't associate with them. Block them if you can. Don't respond to them no matter how persistent they are, and don't respond if they start threatening you, because what does happen typically, they start threatening, intimidating, or trying to use ideas of blackmail. Don't give into it, just deny them. they won't waste their time, because what's really going on with a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, you got a room or a house or a building with 25 persons in a room, and they're talking to each other, and they're all on computers doing the exact same thing to a bunch of other people at the same time. If they realize you're a lost case, they'll move on. They'll leave you alone. They don't typically come back. Sometimes they will. 6 months later, they'll reapply. It's sometimes as bad as some of those old car salesmen that just want to cold call and be like, hey, you remember you checked out a car back in the day? They can be persistent, so they will reach out 6 months later, possibly. I've had that happen as well. But disconnect, disassociate, block, and report anything like that to any kind of social media group. Sometimes they want you to give a piece of the chat. Sometimes social media won't block them, and you're like, oh, this is obvious. Don't get frustrated with it. Just disconnect communication and share with your friends to say, hey, this person messaged me, this happened. Don't fall victim to it. Here's what they are. Here's their credentials. Here's what they were posing as. Share the information. Just make it public. Unfortunately, don't let the shame or the embarrassment of admitting that this kind of happened, because it happens to everybody, block you from sharing and protecting other people if you've dealt with it. So that being said, if you get scammed and they do take money, definitely contact your bank, definitely change your passwords, definitely take the appropriate actions. But on the relationship scams, I've seen it. I've seen people fall victim to such a depth that they have sympathy for the person, or they truly fall for the person, and they can't emotionally get past it. They can't, it just doesn't make sense to them. That's a tough one. That's absolutely a tough one. And I've seen that, where the example I'll give here is this went on for several months, and they admitted that they were not who they said they were. And that person was so head over heels, they accepted that they were from wherever, and they were willing to love them anyway. And they were just so involved emotionally, they didn't know how to not break away, you know? So if you or your family or anybody's going through that, or maybe somebody in church, there might be a little bit of intervention. There might need to be a little bit of, hey, let's wake up, because what they're really doing, they don't care about you. They don't have any interest in you. It's all been a lie. It's all been fake just to get your identity, to steal your money. It's, in the end, it's about money. I've seen that happen in the United States and out of the United States. So again, it's not all, again, I'm pointing out Africa, but it does happen in Asia, you know, Europe as well. But I have seen somebody from California, I'll pick on you guys for a little bit, do it to somebody in Louisiana. And whenever they wound up finally meeting the person, we hear the old catfish story, they accepted them anyway. They were like, oh man, you know what? The investment was there, and they were so embarrassed about it. They just accepted it and stuck with them to a detriment, where they were actually getting abused and financially taken advantage of in the end of it. Has anybody, does anybody have any stories or anything like this that were covered so far that they would like to share, to their comfort level, of course?
Can I say something?
Please do.
So, not that as if I'm a catfish, I could see where it's hard on the other end, where I think the good thing about having groups like we have, or is that you can reach out to admin to see if they know the person.
Yes.
Because like I have friends who are part of like the UPCI. I'm not, but I'm friends with them. But they were not refugees, but they came here for college. I know who they are. They're on my Facebook, and sometimes their friends will add me, and I just verify through my friends, like, hey, we have a mutual friend. Like, do you know this person or not? Even for these groups, it's good to verify, because I've been called out more than a couple times by guys who are like, you're a catfish, like you don't post there anything, you never say anything to anyone, like how, like you're just a catfish. And I'm like, no, I'm real. Like, but like if you don't believe me, there's video chat, and you can verify through administration like that I'm a real person. And I think that's always good to verify, because some of these people are real versus other people in other states who don't necessarily have the best interests. Because like I said, catfishing happens locally constantly. And also keeping an eye out on other people who have like extra like posts, because sometimes you don't realize your account's been hacked, or somebody's taking your photos and using them, because some people just don't reach out and don't realize like if somebody has 2 profiles, more than likely it's not on purpose.
Yeah. Yep. I can tell you, I've been requested to look into somebody and discovering that they have 12 profiles, all with the same picture and name. And so what you find is that has gradually been more and more involved in scams. You brought up something to mind. One of the best vetting tools we have actually is video chat, but they can manipulate it. So we still can't ultimately rely on it. So what you'll find if I'm getting somebody who's wanting to come into the forum with us, as you know, just to be added, if it looks kind of fishy, I'll ask them to do something kind of unique that they won't have a photo of, like touch your nose with your pinky and send me a picture of that. Chances are they don't have that if they're, you know, scamming from somebody else's photos. And so what you'll get is comments like, I'm not doing that. And if they refuse to do something silly like that, don't invite them, don't add them, don't approve them. That's a real good way to vet them. The other way is, let's say it's not about the forums. Let's say it's one of these, you know, relationship moments. Have a video chat with them. If they refuse to show their face, or if they sound like they're imitating their voice and it's all a black screen, there's your big flag right there. What I've found is they rarely will initiate video. But again, this goes into me putting myself as a vulnerability to being on a video, because yes, they can do a deep fake. Thank you for pointing that out. I will be vulnerable by doing this. So typically I'll put a mask on just to watch them, since everybody's got masks handy these days. But what you'll find is that they're not actually on video. They'll have a loop recording of them saying, oh, hey, I can't hear you. What? And then they'll cut it off. What they're looking for is you. But the mass majority of them will refuse to get on video, or they'll say they can't do a video.
Yeah, they'll use a filter sometimes too. You know,
Yes.
they can use filters to scam
That's
people too.
That's right. They'll do a deep fake.
I've
That's
seen
right.
that.
Absolutely. So you'll get Tom
or
Cruise
they'll-
on the other end of
use a
this
family
thing.
member or something. Yeah, and it's really dirty. So I've
Yes.
seen what that looks like. Yeah, and they'll try to, you know, put something over their face or something, or change their voice in some way. So
Yep.
I've caught someone doing that before. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even for media, they have to worry about deep fakes, because so many are so well done if you have the right technology, that you can take anyone's face, essentially, and then make them say or do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And people don't even realize it's not the actual person. It's just a filter.
Absolutely. So thank you, Becky, for pointing that out. If you got that much skill, get a job. Yeah, that's actually pretty funny. There's a guy who has a channel who does deep fakes of Tom Cruise. His voice, his mannerisms, and his hair, everything is a part of this deep fake. And you can't tell the difference. Everybody who thinks they might know about this actor or whatever, side by side, they're identical, because it's that deep, it's that clear. For what it's worth, it is out there. So definitely get a peer check from your friends if it's a part of this, to say, hey, is this too good to be true? Is this person who I think they are? Always proceed with caution. Don't jump right in. And I can tell you, there's plenty of people who have that open, loving heart, and there are those of us who are
you can always
seeking.
ask, you know, about the other friends, like you're saying, to see
Yes.
if they know that person. And also, if it's, you know, if it's a scam, you can always report it to Facebook. That's against Facebook policy, or you can post messages and things like that. There's some websites where you can post that, and you know, because it's not legal.
Right.
And you can also contact the FTC and some other places to you know, let them know that there's a scam happening. And
absolutely, you want to report as fast as you can and give them all of the names and numbers and information. If you are able, and a lot of people don't know how to do this, but if you are able to get their IP address, give that to the authorities also, because they can directly connect it. And once they got the IP address, they can reverse the whole process. They can shut them down, or they can flag them through a bunch of authority sites on the other end. So for anybody who knows how to do that on that depth, by all means, use their IP against them.
Yeah, and you know, you can search an IP address sometimes too, and see if it seems to be, you know, legit or not. Or
it'll flag. That IP address will show up.
It'll show you.
So a good example for me, 2 days ago, my bishop's wife added me on Facebook, and she's already been on Facebook, and she has a very specific demeanor. I think we all kind of know our family members and our church members, and she is this very light, soft, feminine conversationist. She's not about to say something incriminating or vulgar. And so I got the ad. It was her pictures and all of the things lined up, and several of my church members were a part of her friends list already as mutual friends. So I'm thinking, okay, is this legit? People have added her. And I did it. I asked her, I said, hey, did you get a new page? And she said something to the effect of, this junk, but she didn't say junk, keeps messing up on me. And she basically started getting inappropriate in the response, but it also was bad English, bad grammar to begin with. And it was boom, flag right there. And so I contacted everybody on her friends list first that was in the church, that was mutual friends. And I gave them a screenshot of this to say, hey, this is a fake, block and delete and report. Make sure you do it in that order. If you want to help your friends out or your church members, if it's like this scenario, if you block them or delete them, you're not going to be able to help everybody else out. You might not know who's all the way on their friends list. So do a little bit of due diligence first, capture as much information with screenshots as you can, and then reach out to those members or friends or family and let them know that this is going on. And then contact the person that it started with to let them know to make a post on their page to say, hey, don't add me if you see me adding other people. It's a fake. That's honestly the best way to go about it if it goes that route, especially some of our elderly. A lot of these scams absolutely prey on the elderly to gain that information, to look for the weak. Let's see here.
Brother Ollis, what do you think inside the groups when we're accepting members into the groups? Do you feel are some good steps for us to be taking as a team?
So vet them. Obviously, we have our initial questions. We want to look at their affiliation, what their position is. I could say with us, we have a specific doctrine. So vetting them on the doctrine alone automatically disqualifies a lot of people who just don't know the doctrine. Have the questions. If it looks suspicious, contact them. I recommend girls for girls, guys for guys. You can go that whatever route you guys feel necessary. And then when you have that contact and that conversation, pay attention right there, and then share it with your group and say, hey, here's how they responded. Does this look fishy to you guys? Don't just automatically start adding. Or let's say they keep meeting all the check marks and it just seems a little like that. Again, you don't have to add them. But if you do add them, keep an eye on them and take any reporting of them being inappropriate as serious as you can, and instantly go right to blocking them to protect everybody you can. Unfortunately, these guys are getting really creative. And for those who can, emphasize or pretend that they know our doctrine, watch out for that. So, because it doesn't just end there. Thank you for that question. Anybody else? I would say that I know LinkedIn is getting pretty popular, so watch out for the business scams. If you're on those kind of social medias, I think LinkedIn is a pretty professional one. But what about your kids? If your kids are on WhatsApp, Line, Kick, Meetup, or any of these, they're vulnerable. I'll tell you right now, for those who have kids, grandkids, siblings, parents, if you have elderly parents, encourage them to not even use those, to stick with, if you have to, stick with the more popular social media sites, because there are more protections on there and there are more safeguards that hide your IP address, like right off the bat. But those other ones do not hide it. And so you put yourself out there publicly for them to manipulate or take information you didn't think they could even get.
Yeah, I always say, to just keep your Facebook protected and don't share it with people.
Yeah.
If someone's trying to have a relationship with you or anything like that, then definitely check on their Facebook.
For sure.
That'll show a lot of information.
Yeah. I've seen in the last 4 years
different problems. So
Absolutely. And it goes right with what you're saying. I've seen in the last 4 years, some heartbreaks from relationships, and they report up 3, 4, 5 months later to us as admin of what they went through. And it turns out they were not a real person. If you start meeting somebody or anything like that, certain churches, certain groups have different methods. Some people go as simply as courting and pastor to pastor communication. Or, some people just feel very confident that the relationship can be, handled on their own, to a detriment sometimes. So if you've got that, please report it up, and or if there's an initial conversation.
Yeah, you always have to have, certain rules.
Yeah,
follow, basic rules when you're dating or even with a friendship, and definitely communicate with your pastor about that. I believe that, because if the person is, if they're not going to listen to their pastor, then that's going to cause issues right away, and
see that as a flag.
To their pastor, they're going to be resistant to God too.
Right.
So, and that will influence them spiritually, and that'll quickly cause issues. They're not willing to listen. They're not willing to communicate, and they're just trying to do it on their own without their community, without their pastor. Then they'll be really influenced by outside world. That's the issue. I've seen that happen. People just and then they're out. They
right. I strongly encourage that, because I've seen a couple of heartbreaks in the last few years with some of our members that have reported it up saying, I can't believe I fell for this. Everything was there. And then I said, well, did you ever contact their pastor? And as a challenge to themselves, they went and did it after they had broken up and did everything else. And whenever they contacted the pastor, that pastor was like, that person hasn't been here in 4 years. And so if they'd have known that from the bat, like right off the bat, that would have solved it. They would have never made the communication. That would have ended it. So a hard lesson learned for some broken hearts out there, guys and girls. Guys deal with it too. So I know for those of us who are searching for a significant other, we're looking for those compatibilities, we're looking for all those things, but we want to still safeguard ourselves, especially since it's online. You don't know if you're not actually with the person or in a group of people that can vouch for them, that makes it a little harder. So we want to have these kind of conversations. We want to have these questions in the groups to say, hey, what are we really looking at here to protect ourselves and protect our hearts? And what we don't want, especially in a group that has faith involved, is to somebody to get so caught up in them to find out that they're not who they are, and then them leave just on principle that they've been so emotionally hurt, or get caught up and be convinced to leave the church and do whatever with whoever. I've seen it go so many different directions that's sometimes painful to watch.
This is a lot of good information.
Thank you. Yep. With all of this, hopefully you guys can take notes, and we're recording this, so we should be able to send back a playback.
One thing I did learn was if your Facebook profile matches to any other social media, even LinkedIn, they can reverse search your image and they can reverse search your image and pull up your other accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the best way to do that is
listen.
What's that? Oh, you learned your lesson? Yes. That's right. Take that.
Y'all are some scumbugs, you hear me? I see them.
Oh, we lost signal there. Definitely take the lessons learned and share with each other. Yes, sometimes it's a little embarrassing, and if it's too embarrassing, by all means, protect yourself. I know we all have reputations and our own privacy. Something we've made mistakes. We're all human. We can make mistakes. But if you could protect others from things you've learned the hard way, please do so. Please share in groups like this as best you can. Obviously, without incriminating yourself, if that happens to be a factor there. But definitely report it up and share with your admin if you're a part of any of the groups.
I want to share one thing that I've done for security reasons with my credit union, I put a code word on there. So even though somebody can verify your birth date, your social, and things like that, they won't proceed any further until they say, what's your code word?
Right. That's a good one. And I don't know if people realize this. So, those, whenever they get the second and third verifications, like it'll say what street you grew up on, what was your high school mascot, you're actually supposed to be giving the wrong answer. You're supposed to give a random answer. That's the best method to utilize those random questions that if they knew true information about you, there was a big chain going around for a long time about kind of like the early AOL days where you give all these little questionnaires that give like, what's your favorite color? What was your favorite band? What's the first concert you ever went to? And people started filling these out within the last 2 years. And really what that was is perfect information for a scammer to get a bunch of personal detail for credentials for bank accounts about all kind of stuff. Again, what was the name of your first dog? That would be on there. They were using these kind of fun little things that were direct questions from bank account secondary questions to gain access, and people fell for it. That was a huge scam about 2 years ago, I think, or maybe a little older. I don't know if anybody see those commentaries going around as chains, but people were adding them like it was fire, because back in the day of early AOL 95 through 2000, that was a very common chain to share and get to know each other with. But it's back, but it's being used against people. So on those credential questions, most of the time, you should give the wrong answer. If you give the wrong answer, chances are nobody's going to know the truth as long as you write it down. Because if you can't remember the answer, well, you might not be able to get into your account. So definitely write down your stuff. Don't put it on online. You do a hard copy if you can, because if somebody's able to hack in and get your IP address as well, if they can get into your accounts, they can look through all your Word documents if you've got something saved or set aside, or whatever Google program you're using. As secure as they are, if they can figure out your password, they've got everything, especially on Google Drive and all that's all based on one password, one account. Yes, it will let you know somebody else logged in, but I can do a quick scan through all your stuff and take it all overnight, and you'd never even know it, but by the time it was too late. Once I've got all your information, I'm you. On the system, I'm absolutely you, and I can use all your Google Docs, Google Notes, things that people typically do. So the best way to do things like that is put it on hard paper, have a little pocketbook or whatever, if it's a particular wrong answer to a password, to be the best method to protect yourself from those third and second questions that you get from some of your bank accounts. Has anybody ever heard of that being done? Yeah.
Well, Brian, that's like the same thing. I don't know if I had to get off.
But how can they don't have your banking account?
What's that? Say again about bank account.
When that happened to me, I had to close out that account and make another one. Now, if they do all that, how can they get your checking account information from Google?
So ultimately, it's if you store your information, save passwords in your computer, I can run a root file if I know your information, and I can actually run the equivalent of DOS and look for things that you have saved as passwords in, like, for a lot of people, like on their phones or on their computer. If you're not using an encrypted software, like a specific key code, like an all access, I can easily go through and find your saved passwords on your phone from my phone, from a Wi-Fi. So if you have it automatically saved, which a lot of us do, you just click a button. I don't want to have to do the password every time. If you've got second and third party verification, that's when you give the wrong information.
Well, when I go to my online banking, I had to sign in. I had to put my password in for my online banking.
Right. And sometimes with most banks, you'll find that they're looking for a question and answer, like, what was your mother's maiden name? Or again, what was your high school mascot? The right thing to do is give the wrong answer, but for you to be the only one who knows the wrong answer.
Right.
Because if you're alumni, and I know you're a Tiger, for your alumni, I can get in there. I can look on Facebook and see that you went to whatever high school. Oh, let me do a quick check for their mascot. The bank's asking for their mascot. And there it is. I got it. I'm in. I got your information.
makes me want to disconnect Facebook and everything.
And so, you know what? There's a lot of churches that are preaching stay off social media for this very reason, for your own protection. In the wisdom of things,
live streaming,
yeah,
I told my bishop, I said, if it wasn't when I was sick and I had to have live streaming to watch the services, I probably would disconnect Facebook. I cannot stand it. It's just garbage. It's so many scams on there to get you and everything. And I'm over it.
And that's the thing, right? So you got to take initiative on your own. If you feel like that's where you are with things, by all means, do what you have to do. Communicate with your leadership, your pastors, whatever your ministry team is that you connect with. Get that counsel. But if you feel like you really have a problem with things, sometimes you have to take initiative or close out accounts. For myself, I'll tell you, I have an Instagram account that has zero information on it, zero. So people who add me on there know me personally, but there's nothing to look at. So whenever I get a random person who doesn't know me, I don't add them like, oh, I'm trying to find followers. I'm not looking for that because they're not going to see anything anyway. So there's no benefit. So I just automatically usually block them.
And whenever I get a friend request for Facebook, I check you out. I see if you got anybody I know, and you see these people got no friends. Hello, I don't talk to you. I don't want to accept you. Don't cancel it, because once you cancel it, they can resend it again. If you just leave it alone, they cannot keep sending you a new friend request.
That's right.
And I have blocked some.
See here. So Robert brought up a good point. Use the bank or credit app instead. That's a really good tool. So that those apps are actually designed to where only your phone, your IP can unlock them. And some of those even have fingerprint ID within the phone on the app. So instead of going to the web address on your phone or on your computer, using that credential is a really good option. I won't rule it out by all means. Thank you for sharing that, Robert. Any other tools that anybody want to share before we come to a close here? Hopefully everybody's been able to take something from this. Definitely share with your friends and your family. If somebody's going through something potential right now, talk to them. Run that background search. Like I said, I'll repeat, we use 10i or reverse image search on Google Images. Just do a screenshot and then upload that little file to it. It'll just take a second and it'll give you all of the associated information with that image or the first time it was ever used. I've seen some pretty interesting outcomes with that connected to some of these images. I've even done a 10i and a Google image search of myself, and it's brought up everything. It's brought up old stuff. It even brought up my old MySpace account that had my face on it. There it was. I don't even have access to that thing anymore. My old Yahoo account, I don't even use anymore. My face was on there. I know with AOL Instant Messenger, that's no longer a service anymore, but people that had those little pieces of credential on there, it'll find it all. If it's out there on the web and you have a fingerprint on the web, it will find it. Definitely do one on yourself and see what they can find, and do yourself a favor. There are programs, there are websites that help you clean up your own background, that help you clean up whatever you might have as far as a footprint on the web, stuff you're not using anymore. Delete those, contact those systems. Run through the programs if you wanted to. There's paid services and then there's free services. If you really want to clean up your footprint on the web, you can do that across the board.
Brother Brian, are you willing to provide it? Maybe just a little piece of paper, just something you can provide that we can provide in the groups that people can go to be able to do that, like clean up their history and all that off the web.
Yeah, I'll do some research so I can add that. We can make it a pin on our forums, maybe a top pin or just a chat, and I'll see what I can put together for either free or easy or soft search or a paid search if people want to go that far.
Right, I think that would be a great tool. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, what was that from Ashley? Last thing here. People can also find you on the yellow pages if they can get your address or phone number and then find out all the places you lived and then people you're affiliated with. You're absolutely right. I can do a quick background search based on your address alone to find out everybody who's ever lived there, your phone number and everybody who's ever had that phone number and their address and their known affiliates. That's called a soft search. You can do a soft search on yourself, your phone numbers, your emails, for all of those who've never seen that done, I can find a lot of information about somebody sometimes that you might not want out there. I can find court cases and judgments. I can find minutes to the court cases. I've done a background search on somebody on their behalf of somebody they were interested in. And I'll say that if you're doing a background search, respect privacy. Your job isn't to get to every detail and share the world with what they've had in their life. But to say, hey, be cautious, that's one thing. If somebody's got, serious felonies, domestic abuse issues, things like that, yeah, obviously I'm going to say, hey, this might be a guy you want to be cautious about. Give that person, let's say there was restitution, let's say they served time for it. And this is a sensitive subject for some people. Some people might not want anything to do with a prior felon, and that's your prerogative. But for those who have kind of minor levels or greater levels, if you want to give them due diligence to explain themselves, by all means do that. But if you find out something personal on somebody, have the respect to keep their privacy private. Don't put them on blast, that kind of thing. Don't publicize all of their information and say, watch out for this guy, he's got a background problem. You never know the depth of what somebody's gone through. So we want to respect that as much as we can if you do a background check on somebody.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. That was an important little piece of information.
Thank you. I'm trying to jump in the chat here. Fast people search is one, been verified is another. Let's see. Also to see who the owner of the house is you're staying in. All right, so state by state. Some states, the owner for the county assessor is private. Some states, it's very public. They can pose as the owner if they're a landlord for that to scam you out of money as well on that end too, to say, hey, something happened or whatnot. Maybe they need an early month's rent or something like that. Be aware of that. Always look for the information. Make sure they're contacting you with the right phone numbers or calling them back from the phone number you might have saved. Look out for that as well. Thank you, Ashley, for bringing that up. And I appreciate that, Becky, as far as a video teaser. We've had these talks a couple of times over the last few months. So if anybody might feel like they could have benefited from this, we'll do these again, maybe a month or two from now, or typically when we get 30, 40 more members in the group so we can add for more people for more content. And you never know who can jump in here and share something of value. But yeah, we try to advertise for this. It was kind of short notice, a week notice. But we like to post up and pin it. I know Facebook right now, we were talking prior to this, Facebook's kind of funky about what's going on with the forums about their posting in chronological order. So if you knew somebody who wanted to see this, we'll try and take the recording here and edit it or clean it up, shorten it, and then try and share back what we can with these recordings. Does anybody else have any closing comments? Thank you, Mike. All right, with that, if nobody's got anything else, once again, the big thing is proceed with caution. Don't take anything that's too good to be true. Definitely don't give up bank account information. Definitely, even if it's been 2-3 months, don't give out finance. Don't use cards to help people out. That's one of the biggest flags. If somebody's not willing to video chat with you after 2 months or have a phone call with you after a certain amount of time, consider that a big flag. If you feel like there's any flags, reach out to your friends, your leadership, the forums, talk to them, share. Some of us can do some pretty heavy background searches if it comes down to it. But if it's too good to be true or something just isn't right, it's probably that case. So don't get too invested in it emotionally because it can only lead to heartbreak and financial burden. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.